Okay, so welcome, mothers and others. Tonight we're meeting with Colonel Kim Olson, who is running to be the next Texas Democratic Party chair. Kim has spent 28 years in the Air Force and was part of the first generation of female pilots. She retired from the military and then served again in the State National Guard in the IT and the HR departments, helping Texas families. In 2007, she went into education, serving as the head of HR at in Dallas ISD, and then elected to the Weatherford ISD School Board. Okay, and then hold on a second. In 2018, she was a nominee for the Agricultural Commissioner and a candidate for the 2020 elections in District 24 in the U.S. House of Representatives. She started an organization called Grace After Fire, which helps soldiers reintegrate back into civilian life and helping them get back on their feet again. Through this, she has helped over 6,000 Texas families throughout this organization. She's also a master gardener, and we are so honored to have Kim here with us tonight. Welcome, Kim Olson.
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be with the mamas and the others.
Yes, thank you so much. So we're going to go right ahead and we're just going to get started. And first of all, let's go right ahead and just get straight to the questions. So why are you running to become the Texas Democratic chair?
Well, one of the reasons I'm running is because I think that the Texas Democratic Party, which I'll refer to as the TDP, needs a big course correction. And I'll tell you, Nancy, I have run local, state, and at a federal level. And after my runoff last year, I helped over 100, mostly women, but some guys, run for office. So I see where the needs are, where we have gaps in support for candidates all the way down into the county level. I see where we need some infrastructure and foundation built in both rural and exurban communities so that we can run candidates at the local level. You spoke to my school board run for 2 terms. Can you imagine how important school board is right now? And that's considered a nonpartisan position, but we all know what's happening right now across our school system. So we need reasonable folks in office. So I am running to help the party because I've run, I understand what it takes, and I think I'm the kind of leader that can pivot this party and get it on a firm footing so that we can win.
That sounds great. So tell us a little bit more about this position. How is this position elected?
Very good question. Yeah, you don't appear on a ballot anywhere, really. What will happen, and I would love for your participants to do this, is you sign up to be a delegate with your respective county. So whatever your county is, the party will open up a website and you'll sign up to be a delegate. Then you go what's called to a Senate convention and they vote all the delegates in. So mostly we have more positions than delegates. So on March the 19th, all the Senate districts across Texas will meet and then they'll vote to set, for their delegates. Inside of that, this is all inside baseball game, you can be nominated by your county chair to sit on the nomination committee. And then what happens is that committee, or we call it the caucus, will go to the convention in Dallas on July the 14th and 15th and 16th. And that's where the chair gets elected for the Democratic Party. The chair, the vice of finance, treasurer, and the secretary, they all get elected at the convention. So it's all inside the Democratic Party is how it works.
That's great. And so when does the person who wins the election actually take the office over? When do they?
Like on July the 16th.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
So you're in it. Yeah, that's why I want the job. So I'm trying to do the job now so that I'm ready to go come July, because you don't just want to get elected, y'all. You want to have support inside of the system so you can get these big changes done that you want done right away, because we're going to go right into an election cycle. And, it's probably going to be a bit tough. Yeah, it's going to be a tough cycle for us.
Yeah, you're going to be straight into the fire, basically, right off the bat, for sure.
Yeah.
So this position, historically, tell us a little bit about what this position has historically done and what you would do differently.
Well, I'm not quite sure what it has done. I mean, I think the person that had it before has had it for over a decade, probably gave some direction for it. I understand we were struggling a bit about 10 years ago. Put another male at the top. So I'll let history judge how they've done. What I would like to do in this position is, number one, I think this position needs somebody full time. So that's the first thing. The person before has not been full time. They've had to work to put groceries on the table. Second is, this position should be the primary fundraiser for the party, meaning you got to convince the guys in New York and Boston and the DNC and California that Texas, which picked up 2 congressional seats, meaning we're getting younger and more diverse, is truly going to be the battleground for the next presidential. But if you don't invest with us now, you aren't going to see a blue state. And so the work has to be done now, just not in presidential cycles. In addition, donors with inside of our state have always been kind of the ATM for the rest of the country. And I think in 2020, a lot of money stayed in Texas, the tune of $30 million. And we got to go back to those donors who, trust me, are very disappointed at the results for all the money they spent in 2020, and convince them that there are programmatics they could fund to help put infrastructures in place all the way down to the county level, such that these great local candidates can run. Because look, I love having a rock star at the top of the ticket. Hell, I think I was one of them, right? Visited 244 counties in this state, chased Beto's ass all over the place. But it is not enough to have one person at the top. You have to have local candidates running to excite the base all across this state, especially in the rural areas. We absolutely, Nancy, have to release the death grip the GOP has in the rural areas. And there are some work that we can be doing.
Okay. That sounds great. So let's go right ahead and let's ask about the Beto campaign. So again, how do we take the enthusiasm right now that everybody has for the Beto campaign, and how do we carry this down the ballot? Like, what should we be doing to carry it down the ballot?
Well, I think you kind of got to wait until you clear your primaries. The big thing is, I think a lot of messaging, which I hope you will ask me about. What are we going to do to message? We tend to rely on every election cycle. So the first thing is, I think the TDP needs to have some strategic plan about this, that you have sort of this long range look. And yes, you're running elections all the time, but you got to have something out there that you're working for. So that's the first thing. Second is, I really believe those that work with tennis shoes on the ground and knuckles on the door at the local level are the most important. You have spheres of influence. Look, there isn't a soul inside of the bubble of Austin that gets anybody out in my little rural county of Palo Pinto out to vote. That gets done by me and my sisters and brothers that are doing the work in the field. And so I think you have to excite people by having someone to run. And I was on a county meeting this morning with Barnett, and I said, if you don't have anybody running, then what you want to do, we call it a muster cluster, which means you go to the county that's next to you. So I'll give Palo Pinto as an example. We got one guy running. First time in 10 years, Palo Pinto's had a Dem on the ballot. He's running for JP. Parker County, who sits next to us, has no one. So Parker County people are going to come over to Palo Pinto and help us work our county. Because again, it's not enough for Beto to pull. You also have to have a lift from the locals running and getting people excited and out the door to vote.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So let's go ahead and go into messaging. So the Republican Party is very good at sending out a unified message, and their members do not tend to stray from the message. Now, how can we use their strategy and turn it also into our strategy for the Democratic Party? How do we make this happen? How do we get people to get in line?
Yeah, you need message discipline, I think is what you're saying, Nancy, and I think you're spot on. Our struggle is that we are very diverse. That's the beauty of the Democratic Party. It is a tapestry of lots of stakeholders. It can be our strength, and sometimes in the messaging field, a bit of a weakness for us. So what you want to have is not so much a unifying message where everybody's in lockstep, but a message that's appropriate for the audience you're talking to. So let me give you an example. How you speak to East Texas is way different than how you talk to downtown Dallas. What appeals in Austin won't appeal down in the valley. And so I really believe you have to have geographic messaging and you have to have demographic messaging. And right back to your point, I'm going to hit this again, y'all. You got to have a strategic message. And if national won't help you with this, which they will, give me a second here, then you've got to have something long range in messaging. And this is the thing I've heard time and time again from the county chairs. And I'll just tell you, I've reached out to all 215 of them. I've contacted every single SDC, every single caucus, listened to stakeholders, and I am formulated and we've drafted a strategic plan and a messaging plan. That's the first thing. The second is we get our butts kicked by the GOP around quick messaging. And I'll give you an example. You know, Abbott came up to Tarrant County, rolled his sorry self across the stage in front of, the Texas flag and talked about how he is going to destroy, his words, the Democrats in Tarrant County. That was his words. We're going to destroy the Democrats in Tarrant County. Less than 48 hours later, we have a hostage situation in Colleyville, just north of Tarrant. And so it's like you perpetuated that hatred. We should have had somebody on national TV, on, Rachel Maddow, on all the talk shows we could get ourselves on, pounding on the desk that this is what hate rhetoric does. It ignites, it unleashes, and people suffer. And this is the governor of the 9th largest economy in the world and the #1 Republican state. Shame on you. But we don't do that. So we either figure this out or we outsource it and get somebody who's really good at response messaging to make sure we get this right. There are people out there that do this for a living. Hell, that make you think if you own a car or drink a beer, you're going to be sexy and get all the guys and gals. So we can figure this out, but we gotta not always be on the, we're always reactionary. And I just think we got to be much more aggressive. I mean, y'all, we are fighting for the life of our damn democracy. And we're over here grasping our pearls or wringing our hands because we might offend somebody. Oh, I hope so. I hope the Republicans get offended because guess what? What you're doing to us is astoundingly, draconian. And we should be appalled. Sorry, I get all wound up about this.
No, I did too. I totally get wound up about this and I go crazy and I just want to scream to the abyss somewhere. It just drives me so nuts. So along with that, how would you bring in the grassroots organizations into the messaging? Because I think it's super important.
It is. And I think one of the things, Texas is massive and we have lots of incredible allies that do great work in our field. And one of the things we're going to do when I'm elected is we're going to put all the allies in a room somewhere and we're going to say, okay, what's your lane? What is it you're doing out there? So here's a good example. It's my opinion that the TDP should let go of some missions that are not core to their existence. And one of them, everybody just take a deep breath here. One of them is I don't think the TDP should train candidates. That is better done by things like Annie's List, Emily's List, Emerge, Run As You Are, New Politics, Mission Continues. There are tons of great organizations out there that are doing this work, and we ought to let them do it. Because it's my contention, nobody in Austin knows who to recruit in Palo Pinto County or in Bastrop County. That should be done by the chairs, and then we give them the resources they need in order to train up candidates and get them ready to run for office. That gets done all at the local level, which help me just give me one more second and make this point. The thing I really think needs to happen with the party, which is a massive course correction, is the decentralization of support all the way down to the county chairs. And you go, okay, Kim, what does support look like? It looks like resources. When you come and you want to be a county chair, we're going to onboard you. Oh my gosh, what a thought. Let's give people some training about what the hell their job is. We don't do that. They're working on it, but we don't do it right now. Same thing for precinct chairs. There's great precinct chairs out there that have made booklets about what your job is, what the requirements are, what's expected of you. And we should do that and then hold chairs accountable for this work. Give them goals and returns on investment. And if they can't raise money because they're in, one of the poorest counties in the state, which we have, Palapino is fourth poorest in the state. We don't have much of a base. Then we'll help them to raise the money so that
Mhm.
they can run candidates at the local level.
That's true. And how is all of this? I mean, one of the things that we hear a lot of people complain about, at least in this session of this in 2022, is that we don't have a funnel and a pipeline of candidates right now. We
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
have that. And it's really hurting us because we have a lot of districts right now where there's no Democrats running. So we really have to focus on developing a pipeline. So how, I think you just talked a little bit more about it, but could you elaborate a little bit more about developing that pipeline of candidates and how we all need to work together to get that going?
Right. And I'm gonna give it from two approaches. One is, if you build it, they can run. And so my focus as a chair is to build the infrastructure and the foundation so that these folks can run no matter where they are. The party last year sent out a text, spent 100 and some odd $1,000 sending out a text to everybody and their brother about, hey, ever consider running for office? With no follow on, with no what office would you run for, with no infrastructure behind him, with no training. And I know because my husband got it and he's like, are you freaking kidding me? So that's not an approach. The approach is build the infrastructure in the counties and then help the chairs recruit into those positions. If not a chair isn't active, there's lots of clubs out there. My Lord, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting somebody playing in the political space that's a club or a pack or something. There is someone out there looking for people to run. So that's the first thing. The second is this. If you want to build bench strength, it has to be purposeful. Look, y'all, I grew up in the military and you lasted maybe 2 years in your job, but you were always training your replacement because you knew you were moving on. That's how it should be in politics. And how we train our replacements is we look to the youth. Look, those
Absolutely.
of us that are 55 and older, have a turnout rate of about 65%. We're good voters. But the 30 and under crowd only have about a 23% turnout rate. The surge capacity exists with the youth. But if you don't have youth-like people running, if you aren't purposeful about training them to run, about getting them involved in civic engagement, they're not just going to pop out of the woodwork. I mean, an AOC is an anomaly. That doesn't, where's Texas's AOC? Nowhere. And that's because we're not purposeful in training that. And the way you do it, and I'll just bear with me, Nancy, one
Yeah.
of the ways we can do it is through the college Dems. We got 28 college chapters, and they came to me and said, would you help fund an outreach for us college kids to register college kids? And it makes sense versus us with gray hair going to a campus going, here, let me register everybody. Great. But then there's no follow on. If a college kid registers you, they're going to see you in class. They're going to bring you and get you civically engaged. They're going to make sure you show up at the polls in March and then again in November. That's how you build purposeful bench strength. That's the first thing. And the last, I would report to you that of the 100 candidates that I supported after my runoff last year, every single one of them but two, every single one of them but nine, the 9 incumbents lost. All of them, except for Ann Johnson. She swapped a house. Everybody else lost. However, every single one of them but two are still involved in politics. They've either run in a pack because they saw a gap, they're
Mhm.
running again, they're on somebody's staff, they're helping other candidates, by volunteering. And they're most of them are women. There's some dudes in there, but most of them are women. We women don't go away. And I would say the reason is, and then I'll take a breath, is because all that legislation that just got passed was absolutely devastating for women. My son's life has not changed hardly at all with all that legislation. My daughter's life will change forever. And so, if women are going to take the brunt of this political crap going on by the GOP, then we better be in the room where it happens and sitting at the table, y'all, because Ann Richards said, if you ain't on the table, princess, you're going to be on the menu. And that's what's happening to us. So you know what? I am unapologetic about saying it's time for us girls to be in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. And these women better damn well show up. That's kind of what I think. I'm like, it's time for all the women to show up. It's our time.
Exactly.
We all have to show up and vote. One thing that I'm pretty excited about is that I've been doing a lot of research on the candidates, and one thing that I've seen a lot of is I've seen a lot of youth on the tickets right now. There's a lot of really young, exciting people on the ticket. So is there any standouts that you've seen in youth people on the ticket right now, like the younger folks that are running for office? Are there any standouts that you would like to do a shout out to?
Well, there's a couple, there's a young kid, very the first, I think he's the youngest on the ticket, which is Luke Warford running for land commissioner on the statewide slate.
Mhm.
And his power is, and he's unopposed in the primary, so we can talk about him, is he's young and he comes from that young space. He should his lane, and I told him this, you should be a one issue candidate, and you should work the youth, work the youth. That's your strength because that's you. Another one is Ginny Sue. She is running for I'm sorry, Luke is running for railroad. Ginny Sue running for land. Here's another young mother, young children, which I think is very good. Understanding that, look, we've got to have, land in order for our kids to take over. So I think that's a promising thing. I just talked to a very young man running in 21 who is LGBTQ, and he is really from a Republican family, young gay man who's running in a predominantly rural, area of 21, and it's like you go because people underestimate the youth that are actually living in rural. We think no youth live in rural, and that's absolutely not true anymore because cities are so
Mhm.
expensive. So young people are pushing out into the rural areas. And then there's a house person who's again man LGBTQ who is a veteran who's running in a house seat, and I can't remember. I think it's 51. I'm shooting here. I'm sorry, I don't have it memorized. But
Mhm.
I think it's great, and here's why. Because and I said to him, redefine what a win is. You know, um, Chip Roy is going to be tough to take out. He's an incumbent. He's got money. Blah blah blah. But your win might be, let's close the gap by 5 more points.
Yeah.
If there's a young woman running in the valley, it's an R plus 24, y'all. R plus 24. And this woman is said, I am not going to let that Democratic ballot be empty. And she is putting her name. I said, so let's redefine what win looks like. Maybe you can cut it off by five or double digits. Wouldn't that be cool? Maybe
Yeah.
you can, put out that women in the valley, young women in the valley can run because we struggle with some machismo in the valley. I mean, that's what Trump cut into. He was able to harness that, yeah, and show the young women that even if the odds are against you, you still step up. So you're a role model. You train your staff around you, and you show people that even in the worst of odds, and who knows, you just never know, you step up, and good for her.
Yeah.
So
No,
those
that,
are the people I'm proud of. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. So, so what do you think the opportunities right now are for Texas in rural Texas? Like, because I see you're always out there in rural Texas, and I always want to sit down and have like coffee with you because I want to get into your brain. I want to know what you know about rural Texas. Like, what can you tell me about rural Texas? Where are the opportunities? What should we be doing as far as messaging and outreach to them?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good question. And I think sometimes we get ourselves in trouble in messaging with rural. So, and I'm a rural girl. I mean, this is where I live. And when we were yammering on about, oh, we're going to go blue in 2020, I got in my car in Palapino and drove for 3.5 hours down to Austin. And all I saw were Trump signs on either side of the road on 281. I thought, there's no way in hell we're going blue, y'all. You got to get out of the cities and look at rural. And I give you just some numbers real quick. We lost all those House seats by about 22,000 votes. 22,000. That means that's 100 vote a county. Can could Palapino come bring another 100 votes to the table? Oh hell yeah, we could. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so we don't have to win the rurals, Nancy. What we got to do is say to them, there's a number out there. I need you to bring me another 50 votes. So you flush them out, you work them. And so, and when people say, oh, my vote doesn't count, the hell it doesn't. It counts for statewide. If we don't cut into the rural, our great rock stars like Beto and the other guys and gals that are on the slate will never get across, because as I said before, it isn't enough for the person at the top to pull everybody across. You must have lift from the local level, because that's what gets people to go all the way down the ballot and vote. And look at the judges. Look how, I mean, God, look how important school boards are. And here's what I was going to say about messaging. We have an incredible opportunity for rural. And here's why: because that infrastructure bill is going to bring a ton of money into rural counties that are struggling. And it's going to look like economic, windfall for us. You want broadband? I'd love some broadband. I don't want to stand at the corner of my land to get my cell phone to work. These are the kinds of things we got to message. And here's what Trump did in 2020. If you went down to the valley, in Killeen and Starr and in one more county, I forget what it was, he put Trump country on big billboards. And you know what? Starr flipped. We should be doing that. I
Yeah.
should go to donors and say, give me money. I'm going to put 500 billboards up. This is Democrat country. Or you like your new bridge? Thank a Democrat. You like broadband? Democrats deliver. We have to message. So that's the first thing. Second is, we listen to the radio in rural. We actually still have little papers that we read.
Yeah.
We're not all on TV. Cable works better in rural. So sometimes the messaging has to be on the platforms that actually feed into the rural person. And the last is, rural folks have a culture about them. Don't make fun of us. When we speak of guns, we want responsible gun owners. None of us want a 7-year-old taking a gun and hurting their friend, or none of us want irresponsible whack jobs, 17-year-old vigilantes running around policing the street. We don't want that. But you can't say to us, well, you can't have weapons. Well, I'm part of the food chain where I live. This is the reality of where we are. And some of us have livelihoods that we have to protect. So you have to kind of message to where people are. And the last I'll say is the Valley. We really screwed up the Valley. If you'd have gone down there and talked to those border towns, immigration was not the number one thing for them. In fact, immigration was something they were quite concerned about, because to them, it destabilizes their community. To them, it puts burden on their families. To them, it is the federal issue because they can't get the judges to get the folks through the system. That's what needs to be fixed. Their number one issue, believe it or not, was COVID. Number two was the economy. Number three, believe it or not, was the environment. But you can't go down there and say, okay, y'all, we're going to get rid of oil and gas. Not when a ton of people make their living out in the oil fields in West Texas or in the Valley, and they all have high school educations. You can't say to a kid making 80 grand a year with a high school or a GED, okay, I'm going to take your job away and do solar. It just, that will fall on deaf ears. But you can say, we're going to give you a good education system so your children can advance. This is why you work so hard, is to provide for your family. You got to talk to them in family values.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you 110%. As a matter of fact, it's kind of great that a lot of what we're trying to message as Mothers Against Greg Abbott is really lining up to a lot of the things that you're also mentioning right now. So I think, overall, it's a great fit because we're seeing a lot of the same issues as well. So let's go right ahead and go straight into education. So you kind of mentioned it earlier, and Texas is a red hot mess right now. We're a red hot freaking mess. Okay. So with your ties to education and all the things that are going on across the state right now, what do you think Democrats should be doing about it? Like, what should we be doing about it? It's endless, because we have issues with TEA, and we have issues with we have issues with TEA, and then we have issues with just like the school boards, and then we have issues with libraries, and it's like an endless bucket of just things that are happening. It just never seems to stop. So just tell us, what do you think we should be doing right now as far as like just anything, really? Just anything. What is your feedback on education?
Well, I'll comment on something Buddy Lou said, and he's spot on. Let me go to rural first. In rural Texas, either it's the government offices are one of the employers, but the school district is probably the number one employers in most of the rural areas. So when you take money away from public education, you're actually just hollowing it out. And you're going to go over here and give it to charters, which don't have the same criteria, which don't can pick and choose their students, don't have the same testing stuff, and yet you're giving my money to a charter school that doesn't have the same. And then all the research, y'all, and they've been at this a while, shows a kid does no better in charter than they do in public schools. And y'all, I have a degree in education. I've worked in education. I am the child of two educators. My mama was an educator for over 50 years, and I'm a proponent. This is what makes our democracy great, is in educating all of our kids. No other country does that. You get tested out at 6th grade or 9th grade, or you have to test. You get in a vocational versus a college track. We in America, if you show up, I mean, my Lord, we brought people from Afghanistan, 14-year-old kids, never held a pencil in their life, and by golly, they were going to go to public school. So we have much to brag about in our public schools because we take everyone. That's the first thing. The second is, and this is a little tricky, and I'm sure you're going to have Mike Collier speak to you, but here's the thing. We get money by how many kids attend school. It's attendance equals money, right? And if kids begin to walk away from school, or we can't seem to figure out mask mandates, or we can't figure out a way to show that we are actually teaching children, because the money is tied to the child, not the teacher, but the child. But you got to pay everybody whether their kid shows up or not, right? A janitor, a teacher, all the admin, the building, all that kind of stuff. Guess who's going to pay that bill? Homeowners. You will watch. Our taxes will go up significantly. And who did that? The GOP. So for this, oh no, we don't tax, oh, local control, what a bunch of crap. That burden is going to lay squarely on the shoulders of homeowners in Texas. You are going to bear the brunt, just like they did when the grid failed. You customers bared it. Texas homeowners are going to bear the brunt of our school systems if we don't get the equations right, if we don't find a way to get funding to help our school systems. I mean, we have not kept up with what it really takes. I think the bill today to train a child for real, just a basic kid, is about 15 grand. We're sitting somewhere at, I think it's just under 10, and somebody fact checked me on that. But my point is the differential between what it takes to train a child and what we're actually sending our school systems, it is not even close. And the last thing I would say is, when you're a senior officer, you study why democracies fail. We're not over here, celebrating who did well. We study why democracies fail. Why? Because we want to know what to do not to fail ours, right? This is why you study this stuff. And one of the things they do, all dictators, all guys are going to take over, is you begin to take away the education system. Think about World War II, all the intelligent, people that were intellects got taken away. The professors, Russia did that. The big purge did that. This is what you do. And this is the beginning. You want, it seems to me that Abbott wants to dummy down Texans, but we're just not going to have it. We know better. And neither are our youth. They are just not going to have it. So this is the messaging that we have to give, that public education is not only a right and you have paid for it, it is something we need to sustain our democracy. That's the message, period.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's dead on. I have a daughter that's in high school, and I was really shocked to find out that in SB 3, the Senate Bill 3, the kids were no longer allowed to ask about they weren't required to be taught about Brown versus Board of Education. And I was like, what in the world is going on here? They can't learn about Indian history, the civil rights movement in 1964, I mean. So these things are things that my daughter is going to be questioned about in her SAT. And I just thought, well, this is just dumbing down Texans. This is just not going to work. We're going to have a whole entire generations of Texans that are not going to be college ready and are not going to do well on these tests because of our Texas legislature that did that to them. And it just makes me so mad as a parent. It really, really does. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we're going to go straight into Q&A. So last question is, I know we can all sort of expect this. You can probably guess what this question is. So let's talk about this statement that was made a couple weeks ago. So Gilberto Hinojosa called you that woman. And that just left a bad taste in my mouth and many other people across the state of Texas's mouth. It, in this day and age, when we have, we're sort of just done with that, right? We're sort of done with that sort of thinking. So how do we address the misogyny within the Democratic Party leadership in Texas?
You vote them out. There, that's the answer.
Okay, well,
well,
that works for me. I agree.
Well, and yeah, and again, I have known him for a good 5 years now. I have talked to him before I ran. I was visiting with him, and so that was pretty shocking. And I think what was disturbing was not just what he said was, this woman hasn't won anything. How does she know how to run the party? And I thought that was probably the crueler comment, because it really disparages anyone who's ever stepped out to run, especially a female. It's harder for us. We have, we tend to be the nucleuses of our family, especially young women who have young kids. It is disrespectful to those that put themselves out there. I mean, hell, we haven't won a statewide in 20 years, and under your tutelage there, cowboy, I lost under your leadership. So to disparage anyone who runs and then doesn't win, I think it's counterproductive to what we're trying to do in the Democratic Party, which is to fill these positions with folks running everywhere, no matter what your odds are, because we want to challenge Republicans at every turn with reasonable leaders to run for office. So I found not just the misogyny, but the disrespect of everyone who's ever run and won and or lost. I think that's a bit unfair. And so I'll leave it at that.
That sounds good. So before we go into Q&A, which I'm going to start with right now, I'm going to I want to say something to everybody who's watching, and I want to say something to Mothers Against Greg Abbott. It is super important that as soon as the applications are open for people to become delegates, that every single one of us apply, because we all need to be part of the solution, and we all need to just give it a whirl. Let's just try it. Let's just see if we can win. And if we can win as members of people in this group, and we're able to vote in some new blood into the Texas Democratic Party, that's a win for all of us. And we can do that as a block. So it's super important that we all apply, and that we work together as a block, and that we show up at our county Democratic conventions, and that we show up in July. We're going to show up on March 19th. We show up in July, we apply. Let's become a caucus. Let's have a place at the table for Texas families. And we can't have a place at the table for Texas families until we show up. So I'm really counting on everybody who's watching this to show up and to become a Texas delegate. Okay, so we're all going to apply. I'm going to push this out a lot in the next couple of weeks, because we can't have change until we show up. So I'm counting on all of you to show up. So anyways, so with that, let's go right ahead and go into Q&A. Hold on a second. Let's go ahead and start the top. So Jan had a question. She said, assuming Gilberto is running again, if so, do you anticipate a strong opposition from him? And are there others who have put in their name into the hat?
Well, I think you've seen his reaction to me running in the paper, so I'll let that speak for himself. I was trying very hard, because I think it's important how a leader exits an organization, because right now the TDP is a bit fragmented. You have the progressives on one side that want big change. You have kind of, I'll just say it this way, the old guard or the loyalists on the other side. And what I was trying to do was, I had friends in not that I know him, but people that knew people in the White House, trying to get him an appointment somewhere so we could maybe move him on, what they call, sending him up the ladder and giving him a dignified exit, because it is important how a leader that served its party for 10 years leaves. And if he chooses to stay and believes that he has 4 more years in him, because that's how long this is, then he's going to be opposed. So yes, I have called all the SDCs, like I said, every caucus and all 213, because as I mentioned earlier, it's not just as important that I win, it's important I have support to get the work done. Because really, winning isn't the victory, it's getting the work done for the Democratic Party. So I am working very hard in that regard. And what I hope is he doesn't burn the party to the ground, so we're sitting here ruling over ashes. That would not be good for any of us. So I was hoping he would stay professional and above board, but obviously with the article that didn't happen. So he took a throat punch, because I'm not having it. I'm not having any man say that about me or any other female. So he in the words of Rambo, he drew first blood. So hopefully we won't do that again. We are having a debate on February the 19th. And the other person that has put their name in the hat, who I visit with regularly, is a guy named Carl Robinson down in Houston. And he and I have made a gentlewoman's and gentleman's agreement. We will not face shot each other, because that is not good. We have to work together after the fact. And so I'm confident that will happen. And I wish it were the case with the current leader, but we'll see.
Okay, that sounds great. Does anybody else have any questions? What you could do is unmute yourself and ask a question. Are there any questions out there?
Oh, so I answered them all, huh? In about a week or two, I'm on my website. I put my website in there, and if you sign up to be an endorser, in a week or two, I will put on the website how to become a delegate. So we're going to have a whole push, kind of a PSA about how to be a delegate, because it's a bit cumbersome. And as you sign up to be a delegate, my recommendation is you try to get on the nominating caucus, because that's where it really happens on March the 19th, is what you would like to do. So those of you sitting in different counties can say, look, I'd really like to be on the nominating caucus. There are 34 of them. And Stephanie, we're doing it at UNT. That'll be fun. So there's 34 noms, people. I would like 25 of them to be Kim fans. So you can just see that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want as many mothers to be
there you go
delegates as possible, because it's super important for moms to show up. I mean, otherwise we're going to lose our voice to speak up for Texas families. So it's super important that we not just talk for our own family, but we talk for all our families in our communities, as well as the state, as well as some of those people who can't talk, who don't really feel like they have a voice. So it's really good to kind of stand up for all of them. So anyway, Stephanie just posted that the debate is at UNT starting at 2 p.m. on Saturday, February the 19th. So that's also good to know. Also, if anybody wants to endorse Kim Olson, please go to her website. She has a section in there where where you can endorse her and put in a little quote and load up your picture for endorsements. And that's also a really great thing to have on there. Okay, so
I have a question.
Yes,
I do. Okay. My name is Judy Lugo. I am excuse me, president of the Texas State Employees Union, CWA. So one of the things, I have been a delegate for more than 20 years to the state convention. Nice. I mean, I've seen the whole change and how we, but you talked about reaching out to the SDECs, and you talked about reaching out to the party chairs. Well, I know here in El Paso, we're going to have a different party chair. She's not running it, and we already have another one that's going to, going to be the party chair. But what do you do about the old guard? I mean, there's a lot of old guard that is not SDEC, because there's a lot of new SDEC. There's a lot of old guard that are not party chairs. And when they go to that convention, they vote. I mean, I know that Gilberto has been really close with a lot of the unions. So are you reaching out to like the unions and other people who have been like, you said the old guard, because I know what the old guard is. It's really hard to fight them sometimes.
So I did talk to Rick Levy, and they are Hinojosa supporters. So that I understand, but that's Austin, because when you go to the AFT, it's a different story. So here we have the teachers, and they are more Kim fans. Love my CWA. You guys were gracious giving me endorsements when I was running before. I've talked to the UAW. And so what I talk to the individual people around that, because I think that's the best way to do it, is to talk to individual leaders that are in the, in the different union markets. So yes, and thank you, Judy, for telling me that. And thanks for being a delegate all that time. I know it's a lot of hard work, but look, aren't you all tired of losing? I mean, I'm tired of watching people put themselves out there, work their asses off for 18 months, only to lose. And it's heartbreaking. You work so hard, and the consequences are just devastating. The fact we lost that house is going to cost us our right to choose. I mean, it is like, that's how short that line is. So this is about, Texas is simply the litmus test for what's going to happen across the rest of the nation. Trust me, those son of a bitches, sorry, those guys in DC who were in those think tanks said, okay, let's pick a state that's got a Republican governor, Republican House, and a Republican Senate, and let's start jamming this legislation through them around voting, around women, or trust me, LGBTQ they will roll that back. I guarantee you that's coming next. SB 8 is just the beginning. And so the nation is watching us in Texas as to how we fight this. And if we don't, Arizona's going to go again. So it really is about, how do we as Democrats position ourselves to try to turn the tide on this? And you got to respect the old guard. I mean, they held when it was probably pretty ugly back in the day, but it is time for new ideas. It is a new world, and the threat is incredible today, especially for women. And it's just our time, ladies. You got to step up, bring that pink purse to the convention. We're all going to be, hold my purse and watch this. I mean, this is what's going to happen out there, and we got to want it bad enough. And so when you get to the floor, and I'm smart enough to hire what I'm not. So I've recruited a slate of officers, because there's 5 people that work with you as the chair. There's a vice, there's a vice of finance, there's the secretary, there's the treasurer, and then you get to hire a parliamentarian, which I've recruited a no kidding certified parliamentarian, which they had not had. So I have positioned an entire slate. People said, well, you can't do that. I'm like, the dudes in the military told me I couldn't fly jets too. And guess what? Now they call me colonel. So the point being is, I'm going to present to the members, if you vote for Kim, because the number 2 has to be a male, if the number 1 is a female, here's who you're going to get. And what happened before, their words, not mine, y'all, we had a talented officer corps that got boxed out by the leadership. They didn't get utilized, they didn't get leveraged, and all they did was sit and watch their popcorn from the sidelines. That's insane. There is so much work to be done. You better leverage everybody. And everybody I've recruited said, this is your job. This is going to be your job. Here's what you're going to be responsible for. And if you don't want to do this, don't you run. So I've got somebody, not just, diversity. By that, I mean, not just someone, black, white, which it will be, obviously I'm white, and number 2 will be a man of color, but I also have Asian. I also have the disability. Hell, we're all just one hip break away from being disabled. I have somebody that's diverse in age, very young, under 30. And I also have somebody who's Hispanic that's from, San Antonio. I'm trying to get somebody out of the Valley. So you got to be geographically diverse, gender diverse, and you got to be age and background diverse. So I've worked that pretty hard. But that's a great question, Judy. Fair enough. I could use some help with unions. I'd love the CWA again.
Yeah. Judy's really great. She always participates and has good, she has great comments and good questions. And she's incredibly hard worker. And I can I can just tell that by all the places where I see Judy's name, which is everywhere sometimes. I really appreciate you, Judy. So one thing, Kim, this is just sort of like just me talking to you. One of the things that I've been really super duper frustrated with, and I know because I vent sometimes on Twitter, I vent about my frustration, is data. I mean, I'm putting together spreadsheets and content and data that is just completely missing from the Democratic Party. And there's no excuse for that because we live in the age of data. So the fact that like I have to go out there and find that information and just dig for it and it doesn't actually live in a database somewhere is a huge problem. It is. It really is super frustrating. So that's one of the things that I would like to say that would help out all the grassroots organizations. It's if we just really hired somebody to, you know, not just one person, maybe a team of people that concentrate on building out a lot of data. So we not only need statistics and metric data, because right now you have all these grassroots organizations, everybody's reinventing the wheel and we're not sharing data, but we need to find a place where we could share it, create it, share it, own it, add to it, you know, take things out of it that are outdated, that sort of thing. That would help everybody out across the entire state, every single grassroots organization, every single county, every single person who's in charge of, in Texas Democratic politics. It would just help everyone out. So I've been sort of, I feel like I'm reinventing a lot of wheels lately because I'm doing a lot of this stuff. And then the other thing that I see is that when we have candidates that decide to run to become, you know, I don't know, they decide to run to become school boards or they decide to become representatives. We need a checklist of all the things that they need to do, okay? And I'm talking everything. I'm talking set up your Twitter, set up your TikTok, do this, check your links. I mean, check your links is so important. I can't tell you how many times I go to somebody's website and their links aren't working. It just drives me nuts. And I spend a lot of time messaging them and emailing them and saying, your links aren't working, you know, go fix this, go fix that. So it's super duper frustrating. I just feel like, again, part of the whole entire onboarding of new candidates needs to change for 2022 and going forward because technology has changed. So the checklist of all the things that candidates need to do these days is different than it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And we need to completely upgrade all of our systems in order to meet the needs of the really high tech young kids that are now eligible to vote. You know, we need to find a way to meet them and really get to them at the level where they're getting their information from.
Nancy,
Agreed.
can I?
Oh yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, can I add in that? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to tie in a lot with what Kim was saying about engaging the county party chairs and the precinct chairs, because I think that's going to have a lot of delegation down the pipeline where the TDP can only do so much when we have, you know, 5 candidates running for one county position, or how, you know, or one candidate in 5 counties, right? So with the county chairs, if they have that infrastructure that Kim was talking about earlier, where they have a specific, you know, outline of their jobs, outline of what they're supposed to do, resources of what they can, you know, access, because then that at least will help bring that down. I don't know, Kim, you talk. I just thought that kind of made sense in both ways.
Yeah, because who's
tell us.
so two things. So let's talk Van. So you know, there's 2 schools of philosophy. You know, if you go to get Van as a candidate, you're going to pay for it. So like a statewide, it costs about 15 grand. A nonprofit will pay about 3,000. A congressional pays about 8 or 5, you know, depending on what it is. So Van is either going to be a thing that you use to raise money, or it is going to be your data system. And if I'm a candidate and I'm updating your system and you're charging me for that system, you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So my thing would be, let's raise enough money so that if someone runs, like Buddy's talking about, these school board positions or this city council positions or these JP positions, give them frickin' van for free or a nominal fee. Then their job is to update it as they go through. That's the first thing, is let's make van reasonable, whatever the licensing is, blah, blah, blah. Second is, come on, y'all. How many of you are sitting on your, your Twitter feed or your Facebook feed? Next thing you know, you were talking about, I need new shoes. And what happens? Freaking pair of shoes shows up to advertise to you, right? That is or you're scrolling around. That is called predictive. It's predictive stuff about you. They have that same exact software for voters. All you got to do is buy it. I think it's called Reach. And so what we got to do is go to funders and say, okay, to buy the software, and I think it's 100 grand, is 100 grand. I will go find us 100 grand to buy software to update our data that says, yeah, this person is a Democratic voter. They're a teacher. So guess what, y'all? You can message to them around things that they care about. They have all that capacity. They know this is how we get advertised to. Amazon does it. Every little advertising firm does it. We should be able to do that with the Democratic Party. It would be much better. And if you want to do that as a candidate, then maybe that's something you can pay into versus just our basic, run of the mill. And van is a lot better than it was, but it needs to spool up and keep up with the times. So that's the first thing. And then the second, you're absolutely right, Stephanie, is you gotta drive down training around van. We don't do a very good job. And right now, it was a great idea. We were going to have 10 to 15 these regional coordinators that were going to sit over the top of these chairs and help them run stuff. Shit, we got 3. And one of the gals, Allison, has 75 counties under her, jurisdiction and no travel budget. Well, guess what? That's a recipe for failure. No one person can handle 75 counties. And if you can't go see them and put your face in front of them and train them up, and they're not trainers. None of them have ever been county chairs. Hell, none of them ever been precinct chair. So this is just kind of insane. I mean, it's just a stupid thing to do. So what you do is, there's something called the Association of County Chairs, and you make that the body. You pay someone to help who's ever heading that organization, and you get your trainers and you get people on how to recruit and you teach them how to do the data system and the van. But what we don't need is a parallel system. Of course, Beto didn't believe in the van system. That's why he created a parallel system in 18. But the problem is none of that stuff got updated. So here we are starting over again in, 2022. We got to be smarter about that.
Yeah, I agree. So can you tell us what does VAN stand for? What does it mean? VAN.
Voter Activation Network.
Oh, okay.
Is that right, Buddy? Have I got that right? Somebody correct me.
Yeah, somebody asked a question, so that was good. Voter Activation.
Yeah, Voter Activate. I don't have my glasses on. Voter Activation Network, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay,
that's where all the data is about you people. And it's funny because, God, I was talking to a candidate this morning, and they're like, oh, yeah, I got my list from grassroots analytics, because I said, you got to get van. That's where the voters are. That's where, because you're going into a primary, you just want the 75% and greater voters, you want to message to them. You've only got so much money, blah, blah, blah. And he says, yeah, but I got my donor list from grassroots analytics. And I'm like, okay, donors are donors and voters are voters. Van and a donor list but he didn't even know that, y'all. He didn't even understand that voters are the people that you got. This is why you're raising money, so you can talk to those people, not so you raise money from them. That it is, and they had no clue. And I thought, oh my gosh, we got to get better at this.
Yeah, that's all really interesting. I think there's so much to learn, and there's so much that we could do to build up the infrastructure for the Texas Democratic Party. So anyway, I'm so excited that you took all this time to meet with us. And
it's my pleasure.
So much. And because we're all going to participate, right? We're all going to, sign up to be delegates, and then we're going to sign up to be the nomination caucus. and then we're all going to vote, and
I
then
love it.
we're all going to vote for a woman on the ticket, right? Everyone say yes, nod your head, yes. I'm super excited, but thank you so much for taking all this time, Kim, to meet with us. I think we learned a ton, and I always appreciate your point of view, and I love how gutsy you are. And one of these days we are going to have margaritas, I think.
You're speaking my language here.
Yeah, let's just go straight to margaritas, because I still kind of want to, I still want to like tap into your head and talk about messaging.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So next time you're in Austin, Texas, give me a call, because I would love to meet up and talk about messaging, because we're getting ready to start messaging in rural Texas. So I'm really excited about that.
So I would just make 2 plugs around rural. One, we have a whole messaging thing we're doing on the 27th of January. We're going down to San Angelo to have a conversation about rural. It's with the 134 PAC, which is the rural PAC, and I've been endorsed by them. And thank you for your endorsement, MAGA girls. I appreciate that. So that's the first thing. And then the second, we are going to go into the Valley. You know, the Valley really feels left out and taken for granted, and they're very concerned about the headway the GOP is making down there. And I think we got to show them some love and appreciation, and that's what the feedback I get from them. But I just want to make a shout out to Nancy. You know, we've got busy lives. You know, we can sit back and, you know, kind of watch it all come apart. But I am so honored that a woman like you, Nancy, steps up. You got 27,000 followers. I'm like jealous of your Facebook page. Yeah. Okay. So now you're just showing off, you know, and but it just shows that you have struck a core with women that are just like, oh my gosh, I have to do something. And so you give them a place to go that they can vent and learn some stuff. But here's the best part about it is you are taking action. And this is what we have to do, ladies. We can post till the cows come home, and we can march with our cute hats all we want, but we have got to take action. And this is why I just so honor you, Nancy, and all the women and men that are on this call tonight. Thank you for what you do. It absolutely makes a difference, and it's going to make a difference for my daughter and my grandbabies. So I really, really appreciate you all.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for the sweet words. And we're all just, I mean, I'm in here because I'm fighting for all of you. And I just got tired. So I had to do something, you know, that's it. I was just done. So anyway, happy to be here. But thank you so much. And thank you all for your time. And we will see you on the campaign trail, Kim.
There you go. Be well.
Can I ask a quick question?
Okay.
Two questions. Where did Jan get the Beto in the background?
The question is for Jan. Where'd you get Beto?
I just off Amazon.
Is it a full size?
Company, but they have all the political people, so it's like $35. It's not expensive.
I'm gonna look. Cool.
Yeah.
Kim, I went to the website. Sorry about the background noise because the old man's got the TV on. I went to your Kim Olson, Texas, and I clicked on the link there, and it brought up the delegate link. Is that the same thing? The endorsement?
Yeah, we're pivoting from endorsing to I want to be a delegate, and then what we're going to do is send you information on it. And it's so funny, you're ahead of it. My team just brought that live today. I'm supposed to test it out after this call. Well, so you beat me to the punch, Roller.
Do you want me to go in and
absolutely run it and see if y'all will do that? You could be y'all could be my my litmus test. That would be awesome. We're all my team has tried it out, but it'd be incredible if you 12 did it. And it's just this, yes, I want to be a delegate, and then we'll send you information on it is what we're all trying to test right now.
Anyway, thank you so much, Kim. And we will see you on the campaign trail.